Ever find yourself just listening in, catching bits of a conversation, and suddenly you're like, wait, what? Tell me more.
I know exactly what you mean. Like when you're in a quiet spot, maybe a book cafe or something, and you overhear two people really engrossed in their travel plans.
That happened to me recently, and it totally shifted my perspective on, well, a whole country,
Oh,
actually.
that's interesting. What was it about this conversation that was so impactful?
It was all about Pakistan. I overheard these two people, Emma and Daniel, and Emma was laying out all these reasons why Pakistan is this incredible travel destination.
Pakistan. Okay. I can see why that might pique your interest. It's not always the first place that comes to mind for a vacation.
Right. And I think Daniel's initial reaction was kind of like, Pakistan?
Yeah.
Really? But as Emma kept talking, she just painted this vibrant picture, this really compelling case for why it's so underrated.
So what we're doing today is basically eavesdropping on that conversation,
Right.
right? Taking those persuasive points that Emma made and diving deep into why Pakistan might just be this hidden gem waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. We're taking that casual cafe chat as our source material and unpacking it piece by piece. So, where do we even begin? What was the first thing that Emma brought up that made you think, huh, maybe Pakistan is worth checking out?
Well, she started by talking about Islamabad, the capital, but not in the way you might expect. She described it as a surprisingly green and modern city, almost like it's nestled in the mountains.
Okay, so not the typical image of a bustling, chaotic capital city.
Not at all. She even mentioned this place called the Monal Restaurant, which is up in the Margalla Hills. And just the thought of having dinner with this panoramic view of the city is pretty
A
amazing.
meal with a view. Sign me up.
Right. And then she moved on to the Faisal Mosque, which, even in pictures, is just stunning. Emma called the architecture breathtaking and pointed out that it's one of the largest mosques in the world.
Yeah, the sheer scale of it is impressive.
And beyond its size, the mosque's design is really interesting. It's modern, but obviously rooted in Islamic tradition. And to round out the picture of Islamabad, Emma talked about the Lok Versa Museum as a place to really immerse yourself in Pakistani culture.
So you get this sense of Islamabad as a city that blends modern planning with natural beauty and this rich cultural heritage. That's already a pretty compelling mix.
It is. But then Emma shifted gears and started talking about the kind of stuff that gets the adrenaline going. She brought up the Karakoram Highway, which just sounds epic.
Oh yeah, the Karakoram Highway. Just the name itself evokes a sense of adventure. What did she say about it?
She described it as one of the highest paved roads in the world. Can you imagine the challenge of building something like that?
It's mind-boggling, really.
It's testament to human ingenuity, cutting through these incredibly challenging landscapes. But it's more than just a road. It's a link between cultures that's been there for centuries. It's a journey through some of the most dramatic landscapes in the world.
And she had some pretty vivid descriptions of the places you can visit along this highway, like Fairy Meadows, for example. She made it sound like stepping into a postcard.
Fairy Meadows. What's that like?
Picture this. You've got these lush green meadows, and all around you are these towering snow-capped peaks. And then you get this view of Nanga Parbat, one of the tallest mountains in the world.
Wow. You can practically feel the fresh mountain air just hearing you describe it.
And she mentioned camping under the stars there. It sounds absolutely magical.
And then, from those incredible meadows, she jumped to the Hunza Valley, which she compared to something out of a fantasy novel.
Oh, the Hunza Valley. I've seen pictures. It looks unreal.
She talked about colossal mountains, rivers that are this crazy turquoise color, and the Baltit Fort, which is apparently 700 years old. It's like stepping back in time.
And she also highlighted the friendliness of the local people, which can make or break a travel experience.
Absolutely. Having those genuine interactions with locals adds a whole other layer to a trip.
Yeah.
So we've got friendly people, breathtaking landscapes. What else was Emma raving about?
Well, let's be honest, this is a big one for a lot of travelers. The food. And Emma didn't hold back. She said the food in Pakistan is reason enough to visit.
That's a bold statement. Did she back it up with any specifics?
Oh, yeah. She went into detail about the regional diversity. She started with Lahore, which is known for its street food scene. Imagine butter chicken, all sorts of kebabs, fresh naan bread. And she mentioned that a lot of the food stalls have been around for centuries.
Wow, centuries-old recipes, passed down through generations. It's like tasting history.
And then she talked about chapli kebabs, which are apparently a specialty in the north. They're crispy, spicy, and super flavorful.
See, that's what I love about traveling, discovering these regional specialties that you just can't find anywhere else.
Exactly. And get this. She mentioned walnut cake from Hunza. Walnut cake. It's not your typical travel dessert.
It's those unique local treats that you remember long after the trip is over.
And she even touched on the biryani in Karachi, saying it's got its own distinct flavor profile. It sounds like a real culinary adventure, tasting your way through Pakistan.
It does. But food wasn't the only thing that Emma was passionate about. She also tapped into the history buff side of things by bringing up Mohenjo-Daro. Now that's a name that carries some serious historical weight.
It does. For those who might not be familiar, Mohenjo-Daro is a 5,000-year-old city from the Indus Valley Civilization. That's one of the earliest urban settlements anywhere in the world.
5,000 years. It's almost impossible to grasp that kind of time scale.
It really puts things in perspective. And then, fast-forwarding a few thousand years, she brought up Lahore again, but this time focusing on the Mughal architecture.
Ah, yes, the Mughal era. That's known for some incredibly ornate and impressive structures.
Exactly. She specifically mentioned the Badshahi Mosque, the Lahore Fort, and the Shalimar Gardens. And she didn't just say they were beautiful, she described the artistry as mind-blowing.
And she's not wrong. The Mughal architecture is known for its grandeur and the incredibly intricate details. It's a real testament to the skill of the artisans of that time.
So at this point in their conversation, Daniel must have been pretty convinced that Pakistan was worth visiting. But I'm sure, like a lot of people, he was probably wondering about the practicalities of travel, especially safety.
Yeah, that's a totally fair question. And Emma addressed it directly, saying that tourism in Pakistan is actually on the rise. And she echoed what a lot of travelers say about the Pakistani people being incredibly hospitable and welcoming.
That sense of hospitality can really make a difference when you're exploring a new place. And from a practical standpoint, she talked about transportation, which is always a key consideration.
Did she mention any specifics about getting around?
Yeah, she said the infrastructure is improving with better roads connecting different regions, and there are decent options for buses, domestic flights if you want to cover larger distances quickly, and even trains for a more scenic experience.
It's good to know that there are options for different travel styles and budgets. What about the best time to go? Did she have any take on that?
She did. She recommended spring from March to May or autumn from September to November as the best times to visit, mainly for the weather. You get pleasant temperatures for exploring both the cities and the mountains.
That makes sense. Okay, so let's recap what we've learned from eavesdropping on Emma and Daniel's conversation. It sounds like Pakistan has this incredible mix of experiences.
It really does. You've got the modern yet green city of Islamabad nestled in the mountains, then the adventure of the Karakoram Highway leading to these almost mythical landscapes like Fairy Meadows and the Hunza Valley. Then there's the food scene, which is diverse and delicious, and finally a deep dive into history, from the ancient ruins of Mohenjo-Daro to the Mughal architecture of Lahore. And all of this is brought together by the warmth and hospitality of the people.
It's a reminder that our preconceived notions about a place can be so far off from the reality. Emma's passion in those specific examples really painted a different picture of Pakistan. It's not just a headline. It's a place full of life and culture and adventure.
Exactly. So, to you, our listener, what aspect of Pakistan, from those majestic peaks to the ancient ruins, from the tantalizing food to the richness of the culture, has piqued your curiosity? What corner of this fascinating and perhaps underrated destination might you be inspired to explore?
It just goes to show that there are incredible experiences waiting to be discovered in places we might not have initially considered.
And who knows what other fascinating corners of the world and realms of knowledge our next deep dive will uncover, perhaps sparked by your own curiosity.
The possibilities are endless. Until next time.
Happy travels.